Hello, citizens. Welcome back to another edition of Fantasy Talk with Terry Mandangle. That's me. I'm Terry. How we doing today? I'm well. I hope you are too. All right, we're going to be going over everything from week one. We're going to be going over box scores. I'm going to give you my hot takes on everything that happened. We're going to be going through and just, seeing what happened. But before we do, if you don't mind dropping a like on the video and hitting that sub button, really helps the channel. All right, let's get started. All right, first game of the week was Dallas at Philadelphia. Philadelphia won the game 24-20. Jalen Carter got ejected in the first 3 seconds of the game, so he was not in the game, and that really helped out Dallas, especially in the run game. So we're going to start off with Dak Prescott. He was 21 for 34 with 188 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 1 attempt for 3 yards. I mean, Dak was going up against a very good defense, so kind of to be expected. They were really focusing on the run after Jalen Carter got thrown out of the game, and Javonte Williams had a really good game. As you can see here, had 77% of the snap share, which is very good for him. We were wondering who was going to get the carries in Dallas. Looks like it's going to be Javonte early on, at the very least. He had 15 attempts for 54 yards, 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns were really the anchor for his big night. He also had 2 catches for 10 yards. Looks like he's going to be the guy. Miles Sanders only had 18% of the snap share, and he had that big fumble. He did have a big run, but the big fumble might have negated all of it. Talking about the wide receivers for the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, everybody's going to talk about the drops. Even with those drops, he did have 7 catches for 110 yards. That's still a pretty good fantasy night, so we'll take that. George Pickens only had 3 catches for 30 yards. The Eagles are very strong in the secondary, so that's probably why George Pickens had such a tough night. CeeDee Lamb was covered by Adoree Jackson for most of the night. I'm not sure why it wasn't Quinyon Mitchell. He was mostly on Pickens, which is why Pickens was pretty much shut down. Nobody else for the Dallas offense really did much. I guess Jake Ferguson had 5 catches for 23 yards. 5 catches is nice, 7 points. For Philly, Jalen Hurts was the man. Jalen Hurts doesn't care about our fantasy teams, which kind of sucks unless you actually have Jalen Hurts himself. 152 passing on 19 of 23, 14 rushes, 62 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked once for 8 yards. He's going to play the game however he needs to play it to win the game, because that's all he cares about, which is great for me as an Eagles fan. But if you own any of the other pieces on the Philadelphia offense, it's going to be hard to tell which ones are going to be good, especially in the passing game. The one you can almost always count on is Saquon Barkley. He, in a not great night for him, he only had 60 yards rushing. He did have a touchdown on 18 carries. He had 79% snap percentage. So as you could probably expect, he was going to be the lead back. He also had 4 catches on 5 targets for 24 yards. It was good for 18.4 fantasy points. So he had a pretty good night. This is where it gets kind of wild, this Philadelphia passing game. Jahan Dotson was the leading receiver for the Eagles with 3 catches and 59 yards. He did catch a pretty good pass. Devontae Smith was next with 3 for 16 yards. And A.J. Brown with that lone catch for 8 yards, and it didn't come until the 4th quarter. It was a very big catch in the game. But as far as fantasy is concerned, A.J. Brown did not have the best week. Probably the worst start of the week across all positions for anybody. For tight end, for Philly, it was Dallas Goedert. He had a very good night, 7 catches, 44 yards. He was the main target of Jalen Hurts in the passing game for the Eagles. All right, moving on to the next game. It's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. This game was in Brazil. The Chargers won the game 27-21. We're going to start with Justin Herbert in this one. He was lights out, 25 for 34, 318 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He also had 7 attempts on the ground with 32 yards. He had that big scramble at the end of the game to basically seal it. When Justin Herbert has weapons, Justin Herbert is a very good fantasy quarterback. So I would expect for him to have a good year. It looks like if everybody stays healthy in that receiving core, they've got weapons galore. So they should be fine. The running backs for the Chargers, Marion Hampton, everybody was wondering about this backfield, what it was going to look like with Najee Harris. Marion Hampton had 80% of the snap share. He only put up 48 yards on 15 attempts, but he was going up against a very good Kansas City run defense. If you remember in the Super Bowl last year, they held Saquon Barkley, who had one of the best years in the history of running backs, to, I believe it was only about 60 yards as well. So, the main thing about Hampton here is that the snap percentage, that he took 80% of the snaps. So that's good. Like I said, Najee Harris only had 18% of the snaps. Didn't look to dig into his carries very much. He only had one attempt. He had one catch and one target. So looks like Marion Hampton could be the bell cow. If he gets some nicer matchups, he could be a pretty good option. The wide receivers for the Chargers, I in my notes here, I just wrote down yes. Keenan Allen looks like he didn't age at all with 7 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Lad McConkey is normally the main target. He had 6 for 74. And then I guess apparently Quentin Johnston is catching passes now. He's not dropping them, which is great for him, great for anybody that took a chance on him. I believe he is very available in ESPN leagues, only rostered in 3.6% of ESPN leagues, so he's probably going to be one of the top targets this week as far as free agency is concerned. He put up 24, almost 25 fantasy points on 7 catches, 79 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I guess Ty Conklin was the main target for the tight ends in LA. He did have the 2 catches for 50 yards. They also used him on a tush-push type play. They didn't really push him as much as he just kind of pushed himself, but it was more like a tight end sneak. Okay, so that's going to do it for the Chargers. Let's move on to Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, he had a very good night. 24 for 39, 258, and a touchdown through the air. He had 6 attempts for 57 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He had a very good night. Ran the ball more than he had last year. If he's going to be running the ball like he did in 2023, as opposed to 2024, he could be a viable top 6, top 5 type fantasy option again. He was kind of slipping when he was not running as much, but now he is. The one thing I do want to say about this is at that one play where he gave like the forearm shiver as he was going out of bounds, as the defenders slowed up because they know if you hit him, he's going to just go out of bounds, man. Like, the next time that happens, now somebody's going to take your head off, and then you're out of the game. So just either go down. You're a quarterback. You're going to be treated like a quarterback. Play like a quarterback. That's all I have to say about that. All right, next is going to be the running game for the Kansas City Chiefs, which is basically non-existent this game. They were behind the entire game, so the game flow did not really go their way. They will probably be leading in more games than they are trailing, so that could turn around in weaker matchups. The Chargers just looked very good in this game, so it was going to be tough for either of these two guys to really get anything going. Pacheco had 25 yards on 5 carries. He had 2 catches for 3 yards. Kareem Hunt had 5 carries, 2 catches for 10 yards. The snap share was 51% for Pacheco, 38% for Kareem Hunt. So it looks like Pacheco's still going to be going to get the edge when it comes to the lead back in this situation. But it was kind of close, 50-40 almost. So we'll see what happens. The receiving core, the big news here is Xavier Worthy got hurt. So says he's going to be day-to-day. It was week-to-week earlier, so that's better news for him. I guess we'll see what happens. In the meantime, Hollywood Brown is going to be the main target. He had a very good game. 10 catches, 16 targets, 99 yards. He is probably available in some leagues, I would imagine. Maybe not a lot, but if you're in a shallower league, he might be available. I guess the big pickup this week might be Juju. He did have 5 catches on 5 targets for 55 yards. If Xavier Worthy is going to miss more time, Juju Smith-Schuster should see more targets, especially with Rashee Rice also out. Travis Kelce caught a touchdown. He only had 4 targets, 2 catches, 47 yards. Touchdown propped him up. He could also get a bit more usage with Xavier Worthy out, so I guess we'll see what happens next week. They are playing the Eagles next week, so that should be a fun game. All right, the next game I have on my list is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. This was a game that I thought was going to be a lot higher scoring than it was. It was a fun game to watch, like despite it being the Browns and the Bengals. the the Browns could have easily won this game. They missed an extra point. They missed a field goal. They just did a lot of Brownsy things, but the Bengals were able to hold on. 17-16. Joe Burrow did not look great today. He was 14-23, only 113 yards passing, 1 touchdown. Not much to do on the ground. He was pressured all day. He was sacked 3 times, twice by Myles Garrett. Doesn't have to play the Cleveland defense every week, so that's good news for him. He should be fine. Moving down to the Cincinnati run game, Chase Brown. He is the true workhorse back of the team this year. Nobody's taking snaps from him whatsoever. He had 75% of the carries. He was 21 attempts, only 43 yards, but he did get a touchdown. 2 catches for 8 yards. He is going to be the guy in the backfield for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. The Cincinnati wide receivers, same kind of thing with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow just didn't have time to get him the ball. They are a very good defense there in Cleveland, so same thing with them. They're not going to have to face the Cleveland defense every week, so they should be fine. Noah Fant apparently is still playing football, and he plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. I did not know that until this week when he went 4 for 226 yards and a touchdown. He and Mike Gesicki had, I guess he was the 50% was his snap rate, and then Gesicki was only 31. So I guess moving forward, we're going to have to assume that Noah Fant is the guy in Cincinnati, but I guess we'll see more next week. For the Browns, Joe Flacco, 290 yards passing, 31 for 45. He was hucking it. Huck it, chuck it football. Lots of drops. If the Cleveland wide receivers would have held on to the ball, that's another thing that I was referring to when the Cleveland's going to Cleveland type thing. They dropped a lot of balls. He could have had an even better day. He did get sacked twice. Both of the interceptions that he threw were off dropped passes. Like the ball hit the wide receiver in the hands and flew up in the air, and the defender ended up catching it. So you can't really put those on him, but he did throw them. He is going to lose the points for him. It is unfortunate. Came up with 12.2 fantasy points this week. About what we expected. Cleveland running game. This is going to be a jumble, a stew for a lot of the year. Dylan Sampson had the best day because he had all of the receptions. He had 8 catches for 64 yards. He also had 12 carries for 29 yards. Not great on the ground numbers, but if he's going to get 8 targets and 8 catches every game, he's going to be fantasy relevant. Raheem Sanders is for sure the short yardage back for now. He had 3 carries. They were all on and one situations, or the touchdown was, I think, it's like a 1-yard touchdown run as well. So he's for sure the short yardage back until we figure out what's going on. And then Jerome Ford got the most snap percentage. He was at 54%, but didn't do much with it. He had 6 carries, 8 yards, 1 catch for -3 yards. Dylan Sampson had 43% of the snaps. Jerome Ford, 54%. So I think that's going to change next week. I think Dylan Sampson will get a little bit more of the carries going to next week, but then it depends on what Quinshon Judkins is going to do when he gets back, because they have signed him. They spent a 2nd-round pick on him, 3rd-round pick. I can't remember off the top of my head. They spent a day 2 pick on him, so he's going to be playing. So we'll see what happens when he comes back. As far as the pass catchers for the Cleveland Browns are concerned, Cedric Tillman had the best day. He had 8 targets, 5 catches, 52 yards. He had the touchdown. Jerry Jeudy had 66 yards on 5 catches. They are both going to be pretty much on the field in 2 receiver sets the whole time. They're both at 88% of the snap count. Harold Fannin was the riser of the day when it comes to tight ends. I think either him or probably Juwan Johnson from New Orleans. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But Harold Fannin, he was on the field 72% of the time compared to Njoku, who was 84%. So they run a lot of 2 tight end sets, it's going to look like. 2 receiver, 2 tight end, which makes sense for the Browns. Fannin had 7 catches on 9 targets for 63 yards. He was very highly touted coming out of college, so we just were assuming that Njoku would be the starter, which it still looks like he is. He has the most snap count, but Harold Fannin was getting open. Njoku did have a solid day. He had 3 catches on 6 targets for 37 yards, 6 points. That's not bad for a tight end. All right, moving on to the next game I have here is going to be that Arizona and New Orleans game. Arizona won 20-13. Kyler Murray, not that great of a day through the air. He only had 163 yards on 21 completions, 29 attempts. He did have the 2 touchdowns. He also had 38 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and the little bit of rushing probably helped him out. He was sacked 5 times. He was scrambling for his life in this game for most of it. So he did not have a lot of time to find his receivers, which is probably why he didn't score more points. But 18 points, still a pretty good fantasy day. Running game, James Conner, Trey Benson. James Conner had the snap percentage win. He was 65. Trey Benson was 33, but Trey Benson looked to do way more with the carries that he was given. He had 69 yards on 8 carries. Conner had 39 yards on 12 carries. 4 catches for 5 yards. He did get a touchdown, so that's what propped him up. But if you watched the game and watched how they were moving, Trey Benson was moving way better than James Conner. For the passing game, Marvin Harrison is the only relevant wide receiver in this group here. He's the only one you can trust. He had 5 catches, 6 targets, 71 yards and the touchdown, 18 fantasy points. The reason why you can't trust any of those other guys is Trey McBride. He had 6 catches on 9 targets for 61 yards. Again, no touchdown. He just doesn't score touchdowns. It's kind of sad. If he were to get in the end zone, he would probably be right up there with Brock Bowers. But I believe Brock Bowers got injured last game, so we'll see what happens for next week. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Spencer Rattler for the Saints. A better day than I expected him to have. As far as like watching him play, he didn't have too many, he didn't have great fantasy stats necessarily, but he didn't throw an interception, which is something I expected him to do. He was 27 for 46, not great, but 214, 4 attempts for 29 yards on the ground. He was only sacked once. He didn't make any big mistakes. He kept it close. They almost tied it at the end. It's not the prettiest pick. If you're in a super flex league, there's probably better options out there. But if there's not, it's going to be heavily matchup dependent, I would assume. So we'll see what happens with him going forward. That's about enough that I need to say on him. Alvin Kamara, he is still very, very fantasy relevant, even at 30 years old. He was on the field 79% of the time. 11 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown. 2 catches for 12 yards. I'm surprised he didn't get used more in the passing game. They were behind for most of the game, so normally he would get used in those situations. Chris Olave, Raheed Shaheed are the 2 receivers that you could probably use in this offense. Brandon Cooks did have 3 catches as well, but I don't know how well Spencer Rattler would do with carrying 3 fantasy receivers workloads. So Chris Olave, 13 targets. He was looking for him a lot. 7 catches, 54 yards. Shaheed as well. They were looking his way. 9 targets, 6 catches, 33 yards. This is probably the biggest surprise of the day, especially at tight end, is Juwan Johnson. He had 8 catches on 11 targets for 76 yards, 15.6 fantasy points. I'm pretty sure that's one of the best tight end days that was out there. If it wasn't the best, it was one of the top couple. I think I can actually check that. Let's look. Yeah, Juwan Johnson had the second best day behind Brock Bowers. So do with that information what you will. He will probably be one of the highest pickups this week. He is available in almost every ESPN league that you're on. He's only rostered in 1.2% of ESPN leagues. Looks like he is rostered in 48% of sleeper leagues. Sleeper's a little sharper than ESPN when it comes to things like that. Next game I have on my list is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders at the New England Patriots. Las Vegas won this game 20-13. Geno Smith looked pretty good. He was 24 for 34, 362 yards passing, touchdown and an interception. I don't have any notes on the interception, so it was probably something that was his fault. Normally I will write it down if it wasn't, if it was a tip pass or something like that. He did have 2 attempts for 10 yards. He was sacked, was it 4 times it looked like? So he was under some pressure. He had, I think, one of the best fantasy days for quarterbacks. He went over 300 yards. There weren't a lot of guys that did that. 20 fantasy points is a very good day. So we'll take that. Ashton Genty, he was the workhorse. He had 86% of the snaps, but he only got 38 yards on 19 carries. He did get a touchdown, which kind of saved the day. 2 catches for 2 yards. We're going to expect more out of him moving forward. But 12 points in your first game as a running back is pretty good. The next thing we're going to talk about is the wide receiver room for the Las Vegas Raiders. Jacoby Myers led the way with 97 yards on 8 catches, 10 targets. No touchdown there. Trey Tucker is the big winner today as far as receivers go, I believe. He had 2 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. He looked like he's going to be the clear number 2 wide receiver in Las Vegas. And now if Brock Bowers is actually injured, we don't have an update on him yet. But if he's out, then they're going to be looking to spread the ball around somewhere else. Michael Mayer will step in for Brock Bowers, and he will do a pretty good job. He's a pretty good tight end, but he's not Brock Bowers. So Brock Bowers did have a good day before he got injured. He had 5 catches on 8 targets for 103 yards. Was good for 19.3 fantasy points. And then, like I said, Michael Mayer came in, stepped in, had a pretty good day as well. 4 catches for 38 yards on only 63% of the snaps. That's not bad. Moving on to New England, Drake May. He looked like he took, not a full step back, but he looked like he had pretty good passing yards. But he does need to play better. The interception, he had a fumble as well. He only had 4 attempts with 11 yards rushing. Normally he rushes a little bit more than that. That's what you're looking for. That's what you drafted Drake May for. So we'll see what happens moving forward with him. Travion Henderson, he only had 35% of the snaps in the running game. He did have 5 rushes for 27 yards, which is a 5.4 yards per carry, which is very good. He did have 6 catches for 24 yards, which is very good. The 6 catches on 6 targets. He had 11 fantasy points, pretty good for your first NFL game. Ramondre Stevenson had 65% of the snaps. He only got 7 carries and 15 yards. He did get 2 catches for 12 yards. I would imagine that that's going to be a little more evened out as far as the snap percentages go moving forward. Another big winner in the receiver game today would be Kayshon Boutte. He had 6 catches for 103 yards on 8 targets. He, I believe, led all targets. He led all snap counts for all of the wide receivers. It looked like it. Yes, it was Demario Douglas was next on the snap percentage with 63%, but he only had 2 catches for negative 2 yards. Not at all what you're looking for. He did have a touchdown, though, so that helped him out a little bit. And then Diggs, he was only on the field for 41% of the snaps, but he did get 6 catches for 57 yards. So he is coming off an injury. We'll see if they integrate him more into the offense as he gets healthier. As far as tight ends for the Patriots go, Hunter Henry, he had 4 catches for 66 yards. That's good for 10.6 fantasy points. That's a good day for a tight end. So you will definitely take that. Next game on the list is going to be the revenge game of revenge games. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Jets. Pittsburgh won 34-32. Aaron Rodgers going against his old team. Justin Fields going against his old team. Aaron Rodgers was all about the revenge today. He had 244 yards, 4 touchdowns, 22 of 30. He was adamant in press conferences after the game that this felt good, to stick it to the team that told him he wasn't good enough to play anymore. Jaylen Warren was the lead fantasy running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had 13.9 fantasy points, mostly because he got a touchdown. He was on the field for 45% of the snaps. He had 37 yards, 2 catches for 22 yards, and that was where he got his touchdown. All right, so now we're going to talk about Kenneth Gainwell. He didn't have a great day, but he did lead the snap percentage, so keep an eye on that going forward. Then we also have Caleb Johnson. He did not get much run. He only had 1 attempt for -2 yards. He is going to be a later in the year type guy that we're going to be looking for to target. As far as the pass catchers for Pittsburgh is concerned, Calvin Austin had the big day. Kind of makes sense because DK Metcalf was mostly being covered by Sauce Gardner, so you have to go somewhere else. And Calvin Austin was the guy. He had 4 catches on 6 targets. He had 70 yards receiving and a touchdown. Good for 17 fantasy points exactly. DK Metcalf did not bad considering he was covered by Sauce Gardner. He had 4 catches on 7 targets, 83 yards. He had a few pretty good yak runs after he broke free a little bit. And then Jonnu Smith had a nice day for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a tight end. He had 5 catches for 15 yards and got into the end zone. So the touchdown really helped him out. The 5 catches really helped him out. 15 yards could be better, but it is what it is. Pat Freiermuth also had 3 catches for 28 yards. He only the snap percentage was, they run a lot of 2 tight end sets, so that makes sense, but snap percentage was Jonnu Smith 66% and Pat Freiermuth 50%. As far as the Jets go, Justin Fields is a weapon. He only threw for 218 yards, but he ran for 48 yards on 12 attempts and 2 touchdowns. He's one of the shiftiest quarterbacks in the league when it comes to scrambling. He was fun to watch yesterday. If he gets an opportunity to play a full season, I'm excited to see what he can do. The running back situation, Breece Hall at 58%, Braylon Allen 31%. Braylon Allen didn't do much with it, only 6 attempts for 9 yards. He did get the touchdown. But Breece Hall ain't nothing to fuck with, apparently, because he's got 107 rushing yards on 19 attempts. More than triple what Braylon Allen had. So there was a lot of talk preseason using Braylon Allen more. Doesn't look like that panned out for the week 1 at least. Breece Hall had a big day. 107 yards on the ground, 38 through the air on 2 catches. As far as the wide receivers for the Jets, it looked like Ohio State, Justin Fields, and Garrett Wilson, because that's the only guy he was targeting. He had 7 catches on 9 targets for 95 yards and the touchdown, 22.5 fantasy points. He killed me in this league. And that's really all we have to talk about for that game. Moving on, the next game I have on my list is I think it was the biggest blowout of the day. Miami Dolphins at the Indianapolis Colts. Miami got absolutely shellacked in this game. Indianapolis won 33-8. Daniel Jones is back. Danny Dimes, 22 of 29 passing for 272 and a touchdown. He was also a menace on the ground for 26 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's going to be the number 1 quarterback ad. He's available in 95% of ESPN leagues. He's rostered in only 67% of sleeper leagues. He's for sure going to be the leader of that offense. It took Kevin O'Connell 8 weeks to fix a broken Daniel Jones. He had him for about 2 months last year at the end of the season, and it looks like he fixed him. Just like Sam Darnold didn't look great today, but he did look great last week. Kevin O'Connell, we'll talk about him more later in the video when it comes to J.J. McCarthy, but he's a quarterback whisperer. Anyway, moving on to the running backs, Jonathan Taylor was the lead back. He only had 71% of the snap count, but that's because the game was out of hand and they went on to DJ Giddens in the end of the game. He had 71 yards on 18 carries, 3 catches for 27 yards. Then, like I said, DJ Giddens did come in and get 12 carries for 41 yards. Looked pretty good in the time that he had. 3.4 yards per carry, not bad. 25% of the snap count. People were excited about him as a rookie. So we'll see what happens with that. I would imagine that in most games when it's close, Jonathan Taylor is going to get a little bit more of that snap count. So don't get used to that. As far as the receivers are concerned, I might have been wrong about Michael Pittman being overtaken by Josh Downs because Michael Pittman had a huge day today. He had 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown on 8 targets. He was the guy. He was the main guy in the Indianapolis offense for sure. He was the guy that was targeted. He was targeted at least 2 or 3 times more than anybody else in the offense. Everybody else had less than 5 fantasy points. Josh Downs did not overtake him like I said that he would. He only had 2 catches for 12 yards. Tyler Warren, in my notes, I just have written down, I miss you. I'm a big Penn State fan, so he was a big part of our offense last year. He's going to be a big part of the offense in Indianapolis this year. He had 9 targets, 7 catches, 76 yards, 14.9 fantasy points. That's probably the best rookie tight end of the day, I would imagine. Did he beat out Fannin? He did. He was the 3rd overall tight end in the day period. So Tyler Warren is the real deal. As far as the Dolphins are concerned, Tua, what was that? I don't understand what we're still doing with him. Those interceptions were bad. One was to a giant lineman that was just dropping back in coverage. He took 3 sacks. He was 14 for 23, only 114 yards passing for 1 touchdown. He did have 1 attempt for 7 yards. They brought in Zach Wilson. He was 5 of 8 for 32 yards and looked like he had more command of everything that was going on. I mean, by that time it was out of hand, so it doesn't really matter. Devon Achane had a very good game in the loss. He had 7 carries for 55 yards, 3 catches for 20 yards and a touchdown. He's probably the only really reliable player in this offense. So when it comes to the Dolphins moving forward, we're going to be starting Achane. We're going to be heavily matchup dependent when it comes to, I mean, even matchup dependent. We thought this game shouldn't have been an issue for the Dolphins. This should have been a game where all of these players were able to come in and at least hit their targets, and only Achane was able to do that. As far as the wide receivers are concerned, Tyreek Hill had 4 catches for 40 yards. Jalen Waddle had 4 catches for 30 yards. Tua did these guys no favors. There was nothing to write home about in the tight end room, so we're going to move on to the next game, which is the New York Giants at the Washington Commanders. Commanders handled the Giants pretty easily, 21-6. Jaden Daniels had a very good fantasy day, 20.12 fantasy points, 19-30 passing, 233 yards with a touchdown. On the ground, he was very, very sneaky. 11 attempts for 68 yards. He was sacked 3 times for 21 yards. I don't have anything extra written down about him. He had a good day. We're moving on to the running backs. It was nice to see JCM get a good amount of work. He was only on the field for 33% of the snaps, but man, did he do some stuff with that 33%. He had 10 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. It was good for 14.2 fantasy points in his very first game as a rookie. Austin Eckler also had 6 carries for 26 yards and 3 catches for 31 yards. He was on the field 47% of the time. And then at the end, there was the Jeremy McNichols, 4 attempts for 25 yards, which is very good yards per carry. But he was only on the field for 19% of the snaps. So that is a running back room to keep an eye on moving forward. Chris Rodriguez was out of this game, so we'll see what happens when he comes back. If JCM loses any of the percentage of snaps, if who's gonna, where the snap percentage is actually gonna fall. As far as the wide receivers, Deebo Samuel looked like a more important part of this offense than Terry McLaurin did yesterday. He had 10 targets. He had 7 catches for 77 yards. They used him on the run game for a carry for 19 yards and a touchdown. McLaurin only had 4 targets for 2 catches and 27 yards. He made a big stink in the offseason, and Looks like it's backfiring on at least in the first week. We'll see what happens moving forward with him. Zach Ertz, he's still a red zone threat. He had 3 catches on 5 targets for 26 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, this is a good Washington team. I wasn't sure if there was going to be any type of sophomore slump when it came to Jaden Daniels and how he was going to lead this team, but it looks like he's going to be okay. Moving on to the Giants, Russell Wilson was 17 of 37 for 168 yards. He did rush the ball 8 times for 44 yards. He was sacked twice for 11 yards. He had a fumble. He was under so much pressure all day long. It won't matter who is at the quarterback position, who is at the running back position for this team. As long as that line doesn't start blocking, none of it's going to matter. So that's the big problem with this team is the offensive line. Moving on to the running backs, as you can see here, Tyrone Tracy couldn't do anything. He had 10 carries for 24 yards. He had 2 catches for 11. He was on the field for 74% of the snaps, so he is the guy, it looks like, for the time being. Scatterbo did get 12% of the snaps, 2 carries, negative 3 yards, not great. He did have a nice catch. He had 2 catches, but one of them was he ran over a couple guys, which was fun to watch. For 12 yards, I wouldn't trust to start him quite yet. Malik Neighbors, 5 catches on 12 targets, 71 yards, 12 fantasy points. He is that dude. He had a number of those were very spectacular catches where he was just going up over the other defenders and just bringing it down. Wan'Dale Robinson had a nice day as the number 2 guy in this wide receiver room with 11.5 fantasy points. He had 6 catches with 55 yards. He's going to end up being a pretty solid second option for the Giants if they can ever get their line figured out. All right, moving on to... This was a fun one to watch. This was a very fun game. Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Tampa Bay won the game 23-20. There was a missed field goal as time expired. This game could have gone to overtime. It was a lot of fun. Baker Mayfield, not the best day as far as efficiency or yardage. Only 17-32 with 167 yards, but he did have the 3 touchdowns, and they were very nice throws on the touchdowns. He did have 5 carries for 39 yards as well. Moving on, this is Bucky Irving's offense now. He had 76% of the snap percentage. He was 14 attempts, 37 yards, not great. He had 4 catches and 8 yards for a touchdown. That did save his fantasy day. Rashad White only had 24% of the snaps, so I don't think we really have to worry about him eating into anything. And now here's the guy that I want to talk about. This is the guy I always want to talk about. Let's talk about Emeka Egbuka. It says here in my notes, you're an Egbuka truther, just speak from the heart. So that's what I'm going to do. I've not heard a bad word coming out of Tampa all offseason when it comes to Emeka Egbuka. He has been described as a prospect who was going to absolutely smash. I was so high on Emeka Egbuka coming into the season, coming out of the draft. At first, I was a little worried because he was going to Tampa Bay with all the receivers they had there. They had Godwin, and they had McMillan and Evans. And I really thought that it was going to take a year for him to actually reach his full potential. But then, injuries, you never like to see them. But as far as what it did for Egbuka and his stock, it is to the moon. Absolutely through the roof. I am completely sold on Emeka Egbuka. He had 93% of the snaps today. He had 4 catches for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. 23.6 fantasy points. He's going to be a monster. He is going to be an absolute monster. I got him in the second round of my dynasty draft. I have him in every league that I'm in. I'm going to be starting him in every league that I'm in. I might start him over Nico Collins next week. We're going to have to see. Anyway, I got my piece out on Emeka Egbuka. I love him. Mike Evans is still pretty solid. 5 catches on 8 targets, 51 yards. Cade Otton did have 3 targets, but not a single reception for any of the tight ends for Tampa Bay. All right, moving on to Michael Penix. He had a very nice day. He was fun to watch today. 27 for 42, 298 and a touchdown. 6 attempts on the ground for 21 yards and the touchdown. That touchdown that he ran in, where he had to stretch out and like contort his body and like balance himself with his right arm while he was like reaching out to the end zone with the left arm. That was amazing. That was one of my favorite things to watch of the entire day. He did everything he could to win that game, but they came up just short. Yeah, he's going to be okay, I think. I think he's going to be okay. Bijan Robinson, 12 carries, 24 yards. This is where it gets fun. 6 catches on 7 targets for 100 yards on the touchdown. That touchdown that he had was pure Bijan. Like, that is, when you think of Bijan Robinson, that is what you think of. Just beating guys, making them look silly, taking it to the house. He's probably the best running back in the league and is going to be for a couple years. Moving on to the passing game. I guess we should talk about Tyler Algier first. He did have 10 attempts as well for 24 yards. He was on the field for 25%. I think that is officially Bijan's backfield now. Algier had some years there where he was able to kind of stake his claim for what he could do, but Bijan Robinson is too dynamic of a player to not have on the field at all times, whenever you can. Moving on to the passing game. Darnell Mooney was out of this game. Drake London, he's the number 1 receiver anyway, but he had a pretty good day. 13 points isn't bad. He had 8 catches on 15 targets for 55 yards. He did hurt his shoulder, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that and see what happens. We're going to hope for the best because Drake London is fun to watch. If he is out and if Darnell Mooney can't come out, I don't know what that would mean for Ray McLeod, but he would be the number 1 receiver in this offense. Then he had a pretty good day with Darnell Mooney out. 3 catches for 51 yards. You would have probably had to have picked him up off the waiver wire to start him. And if you were in that bad of a spot that you needed points and you got 8 points from a guy that you picked up off the waiver wire, that's it's nothing you can complain about. Kyle Pitts, I'm ready to be hurt again. 7 catches on 8 targets for 59 yards. He's still available in 35% of ESPN leagues. If you need a tight end, he was supposed to be great. Now that maybe they have a scheme that works for him and a quarterback that can get him the ball, we'll see what happens. I've always been high on Kyle Pitts, so let's see what he can do this year. Moving on to the next game. On my list, I have Carolina and Jacksonville. Jacksonville won this game 26-10. There was like an hour and 15-minute weather delay. Start with Trevor Lawrence. Not much to talk about. 19-31, 178 yards. Touchdown and an interception. 10 points. I expect more from Trevor Lawrence this year in that offense, but I guess we'll see. It is Travis Etienne season. 143 yards rushing on 16 attempts, 61% of the snaps. 3 catches, 13 yards receiving. They traded Tank Bigsby to the Eagles. Nobody else yesterday that was remaining had more than 14%. Even Bigsby only had 21% of the snaps. And like I said, he's gone. I think in the long run, the person that this helps out the most is Bashul Tutin. That means there is one less person for him to overtake this job. I think he had the fastest 40 time of the running backs in the combine this year. Last year, Liam Cohen did some crazy things with a running back that nobody really expected, that he drafted late in the draft, a guy by the name of Bucky Irving. So let's see what he can do. I think that's what this move was about. Trading Tank Bigsby was to make room for Bashul Tutin. Hopefully. Fingers crossed, because I own him in every league that I'm in. Moving on to the Jacksonville wide receivers. Brian Thomas did not have a great day. He had 7 targets, which is normally good, but he only caught one of them for 11 yards. He did have a 9-yard touchdown run, which I guess saved his day for any relevancy, getting at 9 points. But if he didn't get that, it would have been a bad day. Next would be, we're not going to see Travis Hunter on here for some reason, probably because he has a defensive back designation. But I do have his stats written down here. They are 6 catches for 23 yards on 8 targets. He had a 64% snap share. He's going to be used in the passing game. 6 catches is pretty good for a rookie. I believe he ended up with like just about 9 points, just under 9 points. So, yeah. We'll see going forward if they use him more. I heard he took a few snaps on defense. I didn't really get to watch most of that game. Moving on to the tight end, Brenton Strange. He could possibly be a top 8 to 10 tight end when it's all said and done this year. He had 4 catches for 59 yards. They were using him early. They were looking to him. He could be a big part of this offense. That's all I really have to say about that game. Moving on, the next game I have written down would be the San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. San Francisco won this game 17-13. Brock Purdy, he had a day of ups and downs. The 26 for 35, 277 and 2 touchdowns is great, but the 2 interceptions he threw were very bad. They were interceptions that you should have seen coming in your 4th year as a quarterback. He also had 17 yards on 5 attempts on the ground. He was very clutch on the final drive to get them the win, but he's got to be better on the interceptions. Moving on to the big news of the day is Christian McCaffrey is officially back. If you had the cajones to draft this guy in your draft, you won yesterday. I had him in one league. He fell to me at like the 20th overall pick, and I couldn't let him fall any farther. So I ended up taking him, and that was the only league that I won yesterday. It was also the only league that I started Emeka Egbuka. I had him on my bench in the other 2 leagues, unfortunately. But anyway, back to Christian McCaffrey. He had 69 yards rushing on 22 attempts. He had 73 yards receiving on 9 catches on 10 targets. 27.2 fantasy points. As long as he's healthy, you're starting him in your lineup, period. Doesn't matter. Moving on to the receivers for the San Francisco 49ers. Ricky Pearsall had a day, 4 catches for 108 yards. That would have been good for 18.8 fantasy points. He has arrived, it looks like. He had the best day of all of the San Francisco wide receivers. George Kittle is out for 3 to 5 weeks, I believe. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So his usage should go through the roof. We will see. Next, Juwan Jennings did not do much. He did have 5 targets. He had 2 catches for 16 yards. Not really what you're looking for. Now let's talk about what we just were talking about. The George Kittle injury. He's placed on the IR today with a hamstring. He had a pretty good day before it got started. He was 4 for 25 and a touchdown, but then he got hurt. He will be out, I believe, like I said, if he's on the IR, I think he's got to be out at least 4 weeks. The replacement for him is probably, I think it's pronounced Tonjes, Jake Tonjes. He caught the touchdown. He had the 3 targets, 39% snap share compared to, well, Luke Farrell was on the field more, but Tonjes did more with what he was given. So that would probably be the guy that you're going to be focused on. He is available. Tonjes is available in 100% of ESPN leagues. He's probably available in a lot of these leagues too. Yeah, he's available in 97% of sleeper leagues. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the Niners. As far as the Seahawks, Sam Darnold looked like trash. 16 for 23. I guess that's not bad, but only 150 yards passing. 2 rushes for 14 yards. He had a fumble on the final drive. Not much volume. That's not good for their wide receivers. Their running backs, we do have something to report. Zach Charbonnet outsnapped Kenneth Walker 58% to 40%. Kenneth Walker had 10 attempts for 20 yards, 3 catches for 4 yards. It looks like he is going to be the guy when it comes to receiving work, because Charbonnet didn't get any of that, but he did have the 47 yards. He had more attempts. He had more snap share. He had a touchdown. That's something we're going to have to keep an eye on going forward. As of yesterday, he was the lead back. As far as the receivers go, I'm not sure that Sam Darnold is going to be able to produce more than one fantasy-relevant wide receiver. And Jigba had a great day. JSN had 9 catches on 13 targets, 124 yards. But Cooper Kupp only had 3 targets, 2 catches, 15 yards. Not really what you're looking for. Torrey Horton was on the field for 54% of the snaps, but did not see a single target. Nothing in the tight ends to talk about. Eric Arroyo had his first NFL catch, so that's fun for him. But other than that, not much to talk about. Moving on to the next game. I have written down here is the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Green Bay was ahead in this game pretty handily for most of the time. Jordan Love spread the ball around a lot. He hit 10 different targets, I believe. Only 188 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns, almost 16 fantasy points. Solid day. Josh Jacobs, he had 9 straight games with a touchdown now. 19 carries, 66 yards. Good for 14 fantasy points. He's the only guy in that running back room that you're going to worry about. This wide receiver room is a lot. What do I have written down here? Let's see. Too many dicks on the dance floor. That's what I have written down for the wide receiver room in Green Bay. It's not a bad thing. Like, they all had, it's always good to have guys you can trust when you're throwing the ball. Jaden Reed was the leader, I believe, in snap percentage. Or no, it was probably Romeo Doubs. Yeah, Romeo Doubs was the leader in snap percentage, but he only had 2 catches. He did have 68 yards, which is good. Jaden Reed, I think they were using him a little less because he was coming off an injury. He had 3 catches on 5 targets for 45 yards, and he did get the touchdown. So he had the most points with 13.5. Dontavian Wicks had 63% of the snaps. He had 2 catches for 30 yards, and then the rookie Matthew Golden had 66% of the snaps. He had 2 catches for 16 yards. Moving down to Tucker Kraft. He had 2 catches for 16 yards and a touchdown. I don't have anything else written down for him. He had a pretty solid day. He finished about where we expected him to. As far as the Lions, Jared Goff, lots of volume, 31 for 39, only 225 passing though, touchdown and an interception. The safety made a great read on that interception that he threw. Not much he would have been able to do against that. Jahmyr Gibbs, 100% snap percentage, 19 yards on 9 attempts, 10 catches on 10 targets, 31 yards. Not a huge day for Jahmyr Gibbs, but solid. I guess they're running a lot of two running back sets there, because David Montgomery was also on the field 83% of the time. He had 11 carries for 25 yards, 4 catches for 18. Only 8 fantasy points, but they were behind the whole day, so they were mostly passing, and he is not one of the guys that they throw passes to. Lions wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 catches for 45 yards on 6 targets. He should be better. They had a tough day against a good secondary. Jameson Williams didn't do much. He only had 23 yards on 4 catches. He did have 5 targets. When it comes to the third receiver in this offense, Khalif Raymond definitely outsnapped him. He was on the field for 100% of the snaps, with 2 catches for 16 yards. But that touchdown catch by Isaac Tesla, I don't know how you say his name, Tesla, it was spectacular. Absolutely mind-boggling how he caught that ball and got his feet in. It was the only catch he had. It was for 13 yards. It was for a touchdown. It was beautiful. Moving on to Sam Laporta. He had a very nice day. 6 catches on 9 targets, 79 yards, 13.9 fantasy points. Very, very solid tight end day. He would have been the 5th best tight end. Moving on, the next game I have on my list is the Houston Texans versus the LA Rams. The Rams came back in this game, I believe. It was a back and forth game, but Houston just couldn't really get anything going, it looked like. Every time that they would start to sustain a drive, they just couldn't get that last first down to get them into like touchdown scoring position, and they had to settle for field goals. Matthew Stafford, remember when we thought he was hurt? I don't think he was. I mean, he probably was, but we were exaggerating, underestimating him, blowing it out of proportion, however you want to say it. He was 21 for 29, 245 and a touchdown. He was sacked 3 times. That Houston defense hits hard. They were leveling the wide receivers for the Rams. Devontae Adams took a big hit. I'm surprised he just got right up from. Puka Nacua had to come out of the game a couple times because he was bleeding from his face. But yeah, that Houston defense are a bunch of ruffians, and we got to look out for them. As far as the running game concerned, Kyron Williams is the guy there. They just paid him. They're going to use him. It's as simple as that. 18 attempts for 66 yards, 1 catch for 3 yards. He had 82% of the snaps. Blake Corum is the other guy that they're using 17% of the time. Not much to do. 1 attempt on the ground for 2 yards. He did have 1 catch for 14. Puka Nacua, he's going to have a huge season. I'm going to go ahead and just call it right now. 11 targets, 10 catches, 130 yards. And that was only on 63% of the snap count because, like I said, he was on and off the field because he was just getting demolished by the Houston defense. But he's going to have an absolutely huge season. I think that Devontae Adams complements him so much better than Cooper Kupp did. He's going to be a monster this year. Anybody that was worried about him not being great because of the Matthew Stafford injury, anybody that had him slip to them in the draft, congratulations. Devontae Adams also had a pretty good day. 4 catches for 51 yards, 9 fantasy points. He had 8 targets. Davis Allen caught a touchdown. That's the only reason he had points. That's all we're going to say about that. Moving on to Houston. C.J. Stroud, 19 to 27, only 188 yards. He did throw the interception. The interception was not his fault. It was a tip ball. He did have 32 yards on the ground as well. He was sacked 3 times for 37 yards. That Rams defense can get after the quarterback. Pretty sure we all know that. Nick Chubb was efficient in these 13 carries. He was 15% snaps, 60 yards on those 13 carries, 4.62 yards per carry. Pretty good. Ogunbowale, 27% of the snaps. He fumbled on the last drive, which pretty much cost him the game. All 4 running backs saw snaps in this game. Dameon Pierce had 11%. Willie Marks had 11%. This is going to be kind of the same as the Green Bay wide receiver room until Joe Mixon gets back. Just sausage stew. A lot of dicks on the dance floor. You're not really sure what you're going to get week to week. As far as the receivers, Jaden Higgins, the rookie, led the way with 32 yards receiving, 2 catches, 3 targets, 6.2 fantasy points. We said he would get more run today because Christian Kirk was out. Nico Collins, he had a tough day. Only 3 catches for 25. We expected a lot more out of Nico. This should be an outlier for him, I would imagine, though. He should probably be fine. Cade Stover outsnapped Dalton Schultz. That's all I have as far as that. Neither of them had tremendous days, but Stover had 57% of the snaps. Schultz had 54. I don't know what we're going to do with that information quite yet. All right, moving on. We've got 2 games left. This was the game of the week. This was the absolute game of the week. I said it was going to be the game of the week as far back as anybody would listen to me. Buffalo won this game 41-40. They were trailing by 15 points with about 4 minutes left. and then Josh Allen went full Josh Allen. He's the best player in the league. It's plain and simple. There's no other way to describe him. He's the best player in the league. There's nobody I would rather want starting for my team at quarterback in the league than Josh Allen. And everyone knows how I feel about Jalen Hurts. He was just an absolute stud in this game. 33 for 46 passing, 394 and 2 touchdowns. 14 attempts on the ground for 30 yards and 2 more touchdowns. I don't know. There's not much else to say about Josh Allen. He's the best player in the league. If you have him on your team, congratulations. James Cook, still doing James Cook things, still getting in the end zone. 44 yards on the ground, 13 attempts with that touchdown. He also had 5 catches for 58 yards. He had a very good day. The snap percentage I wanted to talk about. It is interesting. He only had 56% of the snaps. Ty Johnson had 33. Ray Davis had 12. So for James Cook to only have 56% of the snaps after they just paid him all that money, that's something I'd like to keep an eye on. Keon Coleman has arrived. Everybody said this offseason he came to camp as a different player. It looks like that might be true. 11 targets, 8 catches, 112 yards receiving, and a touchdown on a tip pass that was a great play. He was the number 1 receiver in this offense this week, and it looks like he might be the guy. Khalil Shakir was also very good. 6 catches, 64 yards, 71% snap percentage. Josh Palmer also had a nice night. Josh Allen just spreads the ball around so much. He had 5 catches on 9 targets for 61 yards. Dalton Kincaid had a nice night. 4 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown. Solid day for Kincaid. Josh Allen, best player in the league. James Cook still doing James Cook things. Keon Coleman might be one of the biggest risers in fantasy this week. I don't have his ESPN percentage owned off the top of my head. I could probably check it real quick. Looks like he is only rostered in 81.3% of ESPN leagues as well. So if you're in one of those leagues where he's available, I would go ahead and pick him up. Moving on to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. He had a very good night as well. 14 for 19, 209 yards passing, very efficient. 2 touchdowns through the air. Still the best on the ground as far as most dangerous rushing quarterback in the league. 60 yards on the ground and a touchdown. That was just a tough loss for the Ravens. They just can't seem to get it done in those late fourth quarter tight game situations. It's wild how often that they end up in those situations and they don't end up on the right end of it. Derrick Henry is inevitable. He is fantasy Thanos, basically. He had 169 yards rushing on 18 attempts, 2 touchdowns. He had a catch for 13 yards. At age 31, I don't know how he's still doing it, but he is. He did have that big fumble at the end of the game, which might have cost them the game. But as far as fantasy is concerned, 35.2 points. I'm pretty sure that's the most fantasy points anybody put up this week other than Josh Allen. Yeah. Definitely led the running backs by a large margin. As far as wide receivers are concerned, I was dead wrong on Zay Flowers. Dead wrong. I traded him this offseason. I mean, to be fair, the package that I got for him, you can see right here, I traded Calvin Ridley, Alec Pierce, Kyron William, Tank Bigsby, and Zay Flowers. I got back, this wasn't for Kirk Cousins, this was to get the first round picks. They got 2 first round picks and a second round pick, which I turned into 2 more second round picks. And I ended up taking Igbuka and Loveland with those 2 picks. And in the second round and the first round picks, I ended up getting Ted McMillan and Caleb Johnson. So I'm still fine with the trade because I got Igbuka and Ted McMillan. But most of the reason why I made that trade work was because I was able to give up Zay Flowers because I thought that he was not going to see enough volume in this offense to be relevant. And boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong. 7 catches for 143 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. If I would have known that, I'm not sure I would have ended up pulling the trigger on that trade. DeAndre Hopkins had a very good night. He's still a guy. He had 2 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown that he caught was spectacular. It was a very, very good catch. Moving on to Mark Andrews. Did he even play? It says that he did. He had 1 catch for 5 yards with no Isaiah Likely taking targets from him. To be fair, almost all of the targets went to Zay Flowers, but I guess that's it for that game. Moving on to the final game of the night, we have the Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. This was a wild game. The Bears looked like they had this game in hand, and then J.J. McCarthy flipped the light switch. J.J. McCarthy was not good to start this game. It was very bad. But then in the second half, he looked like he figured it out. Only 143 yards, but then he had 2 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure those were both in the second half. 25 yards on the ground. He was sacked 3 times. He is gonna, need a little bit of time. He did miss all of last year, so technically this was his first start. But as I spoke about earlier with Daniel Jones, Kevin O'Connell is a whiz when it comes to quarterbacks and making them successful, especially in the offense that he runs. So he should probably be fine. Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, the running back split, it was basically 50-50 as far as the snap percentage is concerned. Jordan Mason had 54. Aaron Jones had exactly 50. Aaron Jones had the better fantasy night because he had the better night through the air. He had 3 catches and 44 yards with a pretty long touchdown catch. He only had 8 carries for 23 yards, though. As far as the run game, only 2.88 yards per carry. Jordan Mason looked far more efficient with his touches. He had 15 carries for 68 yards, 4.53 yards per carry. Moving forward, I would say that Jordan Mason should be taking this job, but I guess it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Jordan Jefferson didn't have the best night, but he was able to turn it around in the second half, mostly in the fourth quarter. He caught that touchdown, 4 catches for 44 yards. Pretty much everything with this offense, TJ Hawkinson as well, 3 catches, 15 yards, is going to progress as J.J. McCarthy progresses. And I think that with his previous track record of developing quarterbacks, they should progress fine throughout the season, and it should only look up from here. As far as Caleb Williams is concerned, 21 for 35, 210 and a touchdown, 6 rushing attempts for 58 yards and a touchdown, sacked twice. The one thing that I did like about his night, he looked better than he did last year. And when it comes to him scrambling, last year it seemed like when he would scramble, he would take big losses. Like he would just scramble back and back and drift back and back and back and back. But this game, I'm not going to say this year because it was only one game, but this game, it looked like they were flatter on the escape routes. You know what I mean? Like it felt like he was taking these big looping escape routes trying to get around defenses. And guys are faster in the NFL than they were in college. And I think he figured that out. So he's taking a lot flatter loops to try and get out into the open area of the field a lot faster and not taking big losses. And it showed last night. That's the one thing that I noticed about him. As far as the running backs, it was all Swift. I thought Kyle Monangai was going to get some look because Roshan Johnson was out. But at the end of the day, it was all DeAndre Swift. He had 81% of the snaps. 53 yards on the ground, not super great, but he did have 3 catches for 12 yards, 9.5 fantasy points. Through the air, I did say earlier this week that I thought Rome Odunze was going to take over the lead role in this offense, and it looked like to be the case in the first game. He had 6 catches for 37 yards on a touchdown on 9 targets. DJ Moore only had 5 targets, 3 catches for 68 yards. They also targeted Zacchaeus a few times, well, more than a few times, 7 times for 4 yards and 42 yards. I think moving forward, this is going to be Rome Odunze's offense. As far as the tight ends are concerned, Colson Loveland and Cole Kmet. Kmet outsnapped Loveland by quite a bit. He is a rookie. I think that'll kind of shift to a 50-50 or more 60-40 Colson Loveland eventually, but that's something that we'll have to wait on. If you drafted Colson Loveland, I got him pretty late in my draft, so it's not that big of a deal. And on my team, I've got other tight ends, especially my dynasty team, which is what we're kind of looking at right now. All right, that's going to do it for the Week 1 wrap-up. It was a fun week. It was a great week of football. Every game was pretty much fun to watch except for the Indianapolis and Miami game and probably the Carolina game and the Carolina and Jacksonville game got a little bit out of hand, but Carolina kind of scored at the end to make it look a little bit closer. The Giants game wasn't very close, but every other game was a very good game from start to finish. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next coming days with our week 2 rankings. Bye.